start again. It's a redskin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with a very special guest, Miss Sahmra Stevenson, Esquire. Now, let me explain something. This young lady is a complete brand. Okay, she's not only an attorney, she's a brand. Okay, she has videos on exercise, health, wellness. I mean, if you look this young lady up on the internet, you're going to find all kinds of things. Not only is she a warrior in the courtroom, but she's a warrior on social media. So I'm very happy to have my friend Sahmra Stevenson. How are you today, Sahmra?
Good morning, Sam. It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
thank you for the lovely introduction. I love how I'm a young lady. Did you call me a young lady? I'm young.
Well, I mean, we're both young, right? All right. So look, Sahmra, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, for purposes of this interview, I'm a solo practitioner. I've been an attorney for 11 years now. I've been a solo practitioner completely on my own for 4, but I've been working with my practice for 6 years. As you know, Sam, you were there in the beginning. Sam was one of my first paralegals. And no coincidences, we found each other around the same time. I think we both needed different inspiration on another. And Sam, I'll never forget. I mean, he probably is one of the reasons, not, the reason Office Without Walls came about, but he definitely was a catalyst and a part of how that naturally arose. I remember hopping the plane to Peru on March 30th, the last day working at my full job, and I was just going to be supporting myself with this practice, and hopped the plane. And it was unforeseen set of events that led to me not having the other job. But I remember calling from. I was somewhere near Machu Picchu, and I called Sam because the phone was ringing off the hook. It was ringing where I was, but I couldn't answer it. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'll make sure you get everything you need, and I'll compensate you. I promise." And he was like, "Listen, I'm just trying to keep all the balls in the air. Don't worry about that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so he's an amazing person. So yeah, I'm a solo practitioner. I practice in not just Maryland, but I'm barred in Maryland. I practice in the areas of family law, estate planning, and business law. Primarily, I focus. Have had a heavy focus on custody litigation, so I specialize in that, specifically fathers' rights. But estate planning is another large part of our practice, about 50% of our practice. And for that portion of this, I actually created a separate entity underneath S.A. Stevenson Law called Wills on Wheels. The idea with Wills on Wheels is that we make we make justice more accessible. We make the law more accessible, taking the estate planning process to people's homes and offices. The reason that came about is I worked for another entity where I was doing estate planning for them, but they would only let me do it for them within the confines of their office space and between the hours of 9 and 5, which obviously doesn't work for everybody. So being a single woman with no kids, I thought I would take the middleman out. I should also add that I have slight ADD, so the idea of being away from my desk was very appealing to me, and actually going to people. But it's twofold. There's we make the law more accessible to people, but we make our lives more enjoyable as attorneys, and that's part of how Office Without Walls came about. Actually, trademarked Office Without Walls. That's our brand. There's a lot of facets to that at this point in time, Sam. I don't know if I've talked to you about the virtual office solutions that we've come up with, or the business and transformation coaching that I do with SAS Fit Practice as well now too. But when I trademarked Office Without Walls, it was with the idea of in a selfish way, wanting to travel and have a life. But I do think that I've stumbled upon something, which is that I didn't stumble upon this. This is just general fact. Quality of life determines your happiness, and your happiness determines the quality of your work. And so what I think I stumbled upon was an opportunity to advocate for the use of technology and legal technology specifically, so that attorneys can cut the cord from the desk, cut the ball and chain, whatever expression you want to use. I hope by posting and by talking about it that I'm giving other attorneys permission to live a life. And that's very important to me. And then the flip side, the unselfish part, which is the access to justice. So the more we use technology, the more we use remote sessions. Now COVID hit, so everybody has to do remote, but we've been doing this for 5 years. The more we make things more accessible for our clients, the more we can be of service to our communities. And I clerked for a judge, Judge David W. I am a bit biased, but best judge ever, Baltimore City Circuit Court. And he not drilled into us, he made it very clear to us that we are servants of the court. He did it in a very nice, gentle way, but I left my year of clerkship with him, knowing that I'm a change agent and I have a responsibility to give back to my community.
You know that it's great that you say that, and you said a lot, but I wanted to touch base on the fact that you mentioned you are servants of the court, and I've actually seen you in action, Sahmra, and it's a sight to behold. I mean, and Greg, let's just make something
Can
clear.
We pause there? Can we pause there right there? Because that was one of the best times of my life. One of the best of my life was having Sam Cofer in the courtroom behind me. So here I am, a green attorney, right? I'm green, but I know how to like act like I know what I'm doing, right? But so I'm turning behind me, Capen, sir. You know, I got my assistant in the courtroom. Awesome. Sorry.
I mean, look. Sahmra and I have known each other for some time now. And as she mentioned, I think, her first paralegal. And that was when I was looking forward to actually trying to go to law school before I got into the real estate business, like fully immersed, right? So, I had heard Sahmra on a podcast. Remember that? And it was, I can't remember
the
name.
Young Lawyers Division, the ABAYLD.
Yes. And so basically we had met up and so we, like Sahmra said, we found each other at the right point in our lives.
I'm gonna tell the story. Sorry, Sam.
Okay.
We met up. I'm talking like there's somebody sitting here next to me. We met up, and this man came in a 3-piece suit to Silver Diner in Laurel.
It wasn't a 3-piece suit.
Silver Diner was still in Laurel.
It was.
Man, as I said, it was a 3-piece. The man came in a 3-piece suit. He came in, put his phone down on the table and said, "Do you mind if I record this?" I said, "Oh shit, somebody wants to record me?" Okay. And he had 2 pages of questions typed up in advance. And I left that meeting like, "Oh, Sahmra, you'd be silly not to ask this man to do some work for you." And that's how that happened. Sorry, Sam.
No. That was awesome. That was awesome.
The only reason I asked you is because of how you showed up that day. So if anybody's listening to this as a regular viewer of Sam, pay attention. It was how to show up.
Wow.
Yes.
I appreciate that, and I didn't pay her to say that. Seriously, I mean, this is. but let's get back to it, Sahmra. Let's get back to it. You spoke so much about you're into father's rights, advocating, and being a servant. What drives you to do what it is that you do? I mean, you talked about being able to have a life-work balance. And I know that when I was, pursuing law school, I was thinking, man, I want to be in one of those big corporate buildings where they have, the corner office. They got a view of the entire city, brick and mortar. That's what traditional law firms are like. And that would be so cool to me. But then all of a sudden you changed the game. When we started working together, like you said, you were in Machu Picchu. And all of a sudden, you are ahead of what we're doing now, virtual lifestyle, working remotely. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, the part about being a lawyer and wasn't being an advocate, I think I'm a product of my past. My past is my biggest asset, right? I've always been the underdog. I grew up in an entirely white community, one of 3 Black kids. I still remember in 5th grade when one passed away and I got on the bus to go to school the next day and a white kid leaned over and said, 1 down, 2 to go. So I've never fit in. I've always been too white for the Black people, too Black for the, not white enough for white people, not Black enough for the Black people. Yeah. I've always had to try and make my own way. And I say that to say only that I've always felt like I've been left out, or I have this, idea that I'm like the underdog. And so I'm always rooting for that person because that person is me. And, probably that's my perception. It's not real, but it are true injustices in this world. And so I kind of just naturally flow into that position. And the more I've tried to resist it, I've tried not to be an advocate, but it doesn't really work because it's just kind of ingrained in me. Mm-hmm. As far as the Office Without Walls and being ahead of the curve, necessity breeds invention. I was literally miserable. I've worked in every facet of the legal world. I worked for Rumor Hale before I went to school, which is a huge firm. Mm-hmm. I was in their Boston office. I've been a Rule 16 assistant state's attorney for Anne Arundel County prosecuting cases. I was one of only 7 law fellows chosen by the NAACP to to clerk for them in 2009. So I've done the nonprofit field. After I finished clerking in the Baltimore City Circuit Court, I went down to work for Arnold and Porter down there. I've been in every realm of the legal field, with the exception of maybe like bankruptcy or something like that.
Sure.
But and what I found was that the only way I was going to be happy was to make my own way. So trying to do things the same way everybody does them was not working for me.
Yeah.
I was slowly dying in terms of just like we talked before with the quality of life. So when I would, like, for example, when I was with the big firms, those hours and the pressure that comes with that, 7 o'clock to 9:30 every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 double shots of espresso, no kind of health, no kind of balance.
Yeah.
And so I think what at some point, I remember when I started having physical reactions to the idea of going to work. Like my car, like I literally couldn't get my car to go towards the highway. Like I just wanted to go anywhere but towards work. You know what I mean? When I felt that happening, I knew that there needed to be some kind of change. And I couldn't, whether it was a job market or whatever certain turn of event, I was not able to find something that was a good fit for me. So I just kind of made my own fit.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there was a fit for me out there back then. I think there are fit for me now that people are trusting remote professionals and remote work more.
Sure.
But at that time, there wasn't anything for me.
Well, you're definitely a trailblazer in my eyes, in my opinion. And I think those that are watching this, they would get a lot of inspiration as to, you know, being willing to jump out there, because I'm sure you didn't have a safety net, really, right?
No safety net. I still remember when there was only $400 in the operating account. I didn't know I was going to pay the mortgage. Luckily, I had a tenant back then, so like I didn't have to cover the whole mortgage. But you know, and yes, every time I freak out about money now, I'm like, Sahmra, chill out.
Yeah. You've done this already. Yeah. That's awesome. So you spoke about,
and that's what we're trying to bring.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to bring that same kind of magic to other, not just lawyers or solo practitioners, but also just businesses.
Yes.
So that with the virtual office solutions, I launched virtual office solutions last year. But you know, being a startup, things, you know, go off track. We trained 11 new women in November of 2019, and then I ended up in surgery in January. But the idea with that is to really help encourage not just lawyers, but business owners to find how they can be paperless, how they can let things go, how they can enjoy that same kind of thing. And I think it's a unique time to be helping people right now, because really what I'm encouraging people to do is not block the blessing. You have a mandate that you work remotely in some cases, you know, rather than. And I get that it's difficult, so I'm not like saying people are just complaining. I get where the complaints come from, but let's turn that into something that works, because we don't need to block the blessing of what could be a really good opportunity.
That's funny you say that. My broker always says that chaos breeds opportunity, you know, and that isn't that so true? I mean, you know, we think that something is a disadvantage to us, you know, but if we just flip it and look at it at a different angle or from another perspective, we'll see, oh, okay, this will help me grow. This is where I can fit in. This is where I can stand out, right? This will help me to be better version of myself, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just renaming myself real quick. So I'm noticing that I didn't have my full name in here. So there you go.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
It's honest.
There you go, Sahmra Stevenson. All right. So look, let me ask you this. You spoke a little bit about, you know, one of the fields that you're in, marriage and divorce, right? You work with divorces. And basically, I know I've got a couple of stories, but tell us a little bit about your marriage and divorce practice. Because I actually have a story in which we were working, you actually sent me a referral, and I don't know if you remember this, but the couple had multiple properties, and then the husband would not allow me to represent him or sell the house, because he thought that I was just going to represent the wife, because I think you were representing the wife or something like that.
He was just a jerk. He was just a jerk.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, there you have it. Okay.
Sure. Sure. If you're asking for stuff that relates to how realtors and family law would intersect, we come.
Mm-hmm.
So I use Sam as a realtor in my divorce cases, generally speaking, when property need be sold because parties are divorcing and can't agree what to do with it. Or sometimes they
Right.
just want to sell it because they want to get rid of the memories.
Yeah.
In this case that Sam's talking about, the parties not agree on a realtor. And
Mm-hmm.
where we had a very viable realtor being Sam and the other party just wanted to be a stick in the mud, what ends up happening is the court appoints a trustee, and that's what happens in that case,
Right.
Sam. So the party will come out of to pay the attorney to sell the house.
Right.
So it's always good. I think, if I were going to give advice to a married couple, and I've never been married, so please take it for what it's worth, based on what I see at the end stage of the game, is to have common professionals.
Yes.
Have a realtor that you guys both like, not because you're
Yes.
planning on selling the house, but because your friends are going to ask you for referrals on realtors, or
Mm-hmm.
you might just have a question and you might need that professional in your back pocket. In this case, if the family had a realtor that they both liked, I highly doubt that we would have ended up in that circumstance,
Yeah.
because it would have been this third party that nobody fight about.
Right.
So.
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. And just as a tip, the real estate agent does not represent just one side of the divorce case. We're trying to get the house sold because it's either court appointed or it's going to help whatever the process is move further. Right. So I mean, we're not here to take sides. We don't want to be involved in that. All we want to do is help sell the house so the process can move forward. So let me ask
Yeah,
you
probably
this.
the less you know about your realtor, the better. Just know
Yeah,
whether they can sell a house.
there you go. There you go. Let me ask you this. You are big into estate planning, wills, and trusts, right? Talk a little bit about that part of your practice.
Well, estate planning is a huge part of our practice. It's something I really enjoy doing, especially educating communities of color about the importance of estate planning, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the first person to say, you know, don't get sidetracked by the word estate. You don't need an
Yeah,
estate to do an estate plan. I mean, I feel like everybody says that, right? I'm trying to find a creative, fun way to approach this, Sam, and I'm still working towards this, to
sure.
really present information so that everybody knows that it's applicable to them. Estate
Mm-hmm.
planning goes much further than what to do with your money or your property. Estate planning is a comprehensive, and you know what? I think I'm going to term it life planning, Sam. It's life
Nice.
planning. You're planning
Nice.
for the end stages of life and for what happens after life. It's not
Sure.
about your money or your property per se. We do things called medical advance directives, powers of attorney, living wills. We have kids protection plans, which is something that I don't know of any other attorney. None of my colleagues do this. They might do a version of it, but we call it a kids protection plan. And a
Wow.
kids protection plan consists of standalone guardianship documents, because too often people think you only need to mention guardianship in your will. If you pass away, sure. But a lot of times guardianship issues come up outside the context of someone's death,
That's true.
incapacity, unavailability, and your wishes should still be known by the court in the event that they're going to appoint somebody else, control over your children, whether physical or legal. And it's not just, it's things that people don't think about. So yes, you name people that you would prefer, but are there any people you would definitely not want is
Right.
there anybody you would definitely not want to have your kids or access to your kids? You might need to let that be
That
known,
needs to
because
be
that might
documented.
be a
Yeah.
family member who seems like to the court a good option,
Mm-hmm.
but you know something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but you might know something
Yeah.
that says that person should not have kids in their custody.
Right. Right.
And so that's the kinds we do with the kids protection plan. In addition to that, we also have instructions to caregivers, which is about a 6-page document that we let you do it on your own, and we're here to give input, but giving instructions on things like, how do you want the kids to learn about money? Should
Right.
there be an allowance?
That's
All
great.
of those things you're not going to be there to talk about. And I can see how it might seem somebody to be a silly process to go through, but it's not.
Sure. Sure.
You want the person you're going to be naming as guardian um, you know, to be as close to on the same page as possible.
As you are.
What other things? Living wills go over how you want to be treated in the event that you're not able to express those wishes. Do not resuscitate is probably the most common thing that people talk about, but it goes further than that. If you have an end-stage condition, do you want to receive nutrients? Nutrients keep you alive longer. So, if you're suffering and inevitably going to die, is that something that you want to go through? And so That's my job as an estate planning attorney, to be well versed in how to have those conversations in a sensitive way and make you feel more comfortable so we can get through that. People ask me all the time, shouldn't I just go to LegalZoom? If it seems easy, too easy, it's probably because it is. Sure, go to LegalZoom. I'm not knocking LegalZoom. I think Shapiro is the one who came up with it, right? He represented O.J. Simpson. So he's a genius. It's a genius move. I think that LegalZoom probably has some very good reasons for existing. However, if you don't understand what you created, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
So sitting down with an attorney to talk about those things is a valuable opportunity. It's a valuable thing to do. And creating an estate plan is an investment, but you have to think about, and it's easy to talk to people when they've been through seeing a loved one die and they have to go through the probate process on their own. They know how crazy it can get. If you don't know, maybe ask somebody. It's not my job to convince you of why you need to come see an estate planning attorney. I can just let you know that that it's something that anybody would benefit from, just sitting down at least. What else do we do? The trust. So I talk to people a lot about what probate is. A lot of people come into the office saying, I want to avoid probate. You can go to my YouTube channel. Sam will provide you the information. You can watch our videos. And one of those was titled, like, how do I avoid probate? And the answer is you don't. Nobody avoids probate. Probate is the process by which the courts retitle, distribute, and tax your assets at the time of your death. The only way you avoid probate is not to die. And since you're probably not going to be successful at that, you might want to talk to an attorney about how to keep your assets out of probate. Why do you want to keep your assets out of probate? Because if you have surviving children, surviving spouse, those assets, maybe they don't need to touch them for 3 months, right? But 18 months, which is more like not 18 months, sorry, 12 to 16 months, which is more likely the probate process. They might need to access those things in the meantime. So creating a trust is the way that you make sure that all of your funds are accessible. And it's also how you provide protections for those silly, pesky kids. If my mom had given me a lump sum of cash at 22, I would have bought a Navigator. You know what I mean? But so creating some kind of structure for your kids. And even if you don't think that you have enough to warrant having a conversation about that in terms of what you're leaving, I'm willing to bet you have some type of retirement benefits or life insurance benefits. And yes, you've named the beneficiary. It happens. So those funds transfer outside the will. But did you know you can still provide structure so that the party you're leaving this money to can't pull it out right away, so they can leave it in there and it can increase in value? Or you can create some restrictions about what age they can do certain things at. These are conversations worth having. Yes, you've taken the right steps by making those funds accessible to your minor child, your spouse, to whoever you're leaving it to. But did you give them any guidance or even a chance to make the best of it before it lands in their lap? Because once it's in their hands, it's a whole different ballgame.
And that's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I try to be big on this with my own kids about teaching them financial literacy. You know what I mean? It's important to understand what you're doing with the funds that you have available to you and how to be smart about it. You know what I mean? Anybody can blow through, money. That's easy. Anybody can do it. But if you understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how to structure it in a way that you get the most out of it, then, that's beneficial. And I think personally, our community does not necessarily talk about that enough.
Right.
So I appreciate that information there. Let me ask you this, Sahmra. You mentioned that it's beneficial to have an attorney on your team of advisors, so to speak, right? And I feel like it's important to have a realtor in your back pocket as well, someone you can go to. Can you speak more about the importance of having, we just talked about a little bit about financial literacy and education. Talk a little bit more about why it's important to have an attorney potentially on retainer, or do you think that it's better not to have them on retainer, but have them accessible?
It depends on what your needs are and what your capabilities are. We have memberships for our estate planning where people are on it's not retainer, but it's a membership. So they have
Sure.
membership dues that they pay, but I'm accessible no matter what they need. They want to make changes. They want me to meet with their fiduciaries and go over what their responsibilities are if they pass. That's what we're here for. We're your personal family lawyer, essentially, is what we've been branding ourselves as, you know. So the next, because all of these fields, all of these things, what I find is that, and why I like being a family law attorney, because I really had no intentions of being a family law attorney. First, what got me was the custody. I love doing the fathers or advocating for that. But then what I found the longer I'm practicing is that we touch on people, all areas of people's lives. So people who come to see me for a divorce or a custody matter end up coming for an estate planning, and then they come because they're setting up a small business.
Sure.
And all of these things impact each other. So do you have a small business? You have an operating agreement? Your operating agreement mesh with your estate plan? What are the instructions for what happens for, dissolvement of the business? And is that going to be passed down to your heirs? Do you have business partners? Do you want them to have any share? Is your surviving spouse going to take over? Or do you want nobody to touch that and it should just be wound down? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's very much worthwhile to, if you're not going to keep somebody on retainer or be part of some kind of membership,
Sure.
is to have a good relationship with an attorney. The most I can say to that is pay for a consult, make sure your bills are paid, that kind of thing. That's how you keep a good relationship with an attorney.
Great. Let me ask you,
answer that one.
Are there any give us some horror stories, about what you've experienced dealing with, families, wills, whatever it is you want, and then give us a feel-good story that makes you feel good and helps you realize I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
We had a situation, or it was a little over a year ago, we had a situation with a guardianship matter where the mother was older and in a nursing home, and the daughter who retained me, mother had not made any estate planning provisions, no will, no power, but more importantly for this, no power of attorney, no medical advance directive. So listening to this and you think estate planning is just about wills and your money, please understand medical advance directives, powers of attorney, and also let me, on this little caveat, let me not lose track, Sam, bring you back to the story in a second.
Sure.
Medical advance directives in the time of COVID need to be addressed. You are not able to go into the hospital with your loved one right now. Please understand, you need to look at your medical advance directives and make sure that they give the agent powers to communicate with the hospital doctors remotely. I'm not saying that doctors and hospitals aren't honoring that or making some kind of whatever, but as the longer we get into this, the more you need to be very clear about the means for communication. You have a legal right, and your advance directive agent is your last line of defense, your last advocate for you when you're in the hospital. And since they can't be there physically with you, please look at your medical advance directives, talk to an attorney about that. This woman came to see me. Her mother had not made any medical advance directive, power of attorney, no plans whatsoever. Went into a nursing home. She was with it. That wasn't new. There was no reason for them to think that they needed to act on this.
Sure.
But an orderly basically pushed her too rough out of her wheelchair, and she was flung from her wheelchair, 2 broken arms, black eye, and an ensuing lawsuit against the institution, against the facility. They prevailed in the lawsuit, but over the course that it took to reach the settlement in the lawsuit, the mother developed dementia. So when they reached the settlement and they had this large check, they had this large amount of money that was coming to them, mom could not sign off on the settlement.
Oh.
And there was no power of attorney or medical advance directive for daughter to act on her behalf, or in this case, it would have been a power of attorney. Because of that, we had to seek guardianship through the court, which involves notifying all interested parties. All interested parties include this woman's brother, who they could not find.
What?
He was mentally handicapped. He had a lot of issues. The last we heard, he was somewhere in Atlanta.
Oh.
We had to chase all around, get alternate servants, that kind of thing. We had to go have a hearing with the court. Our petition was rejected at first because we tried to file as an emergency, because it really was an emergency, but the court only hears emergency when there's blood on the floor. So all that to say, it took us about 9 months to get this done. And we were running up against the possibility of a settlement going away for a large sum of money that would have covered the medical bills for the facility where she was now staying after what happened at the original one. So that's a horror story there that could have been prevented.
That is a horror story.
Literally would have been
they should have
30
had
minutes
power of attorney, right?
Yeah, if they had a power of attorney, she could have signed that legal settlement without any further ado. And that's not what happened.
Wow. 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 Yeah, that's definitely a horror story. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip to the good side. Give us a good story. Somebody you were able to help. Well, obviously we know that you helped
Oh,
so many
one of my
people.
favorite ones
Just
was a
pick one.
same-sex couple that we had a same-sex couple. I want to say this was in 2017.
Okay.
And she came to see me, and we went out there. When I say we, I'm always talking about Ashley and I. Ashley is my estate planning paralegal. We have
Yes.
Sam for her because he is who linked me with her. I needed a mobile notary to go with me on these Wheels on Wheels back when I was doing it by myself. And Ashley has, over the
Hey,
past
Ash.
3 years, turned into a straight part-time, 20 hours a week estate planning paralegal, and she is phenomenal at her job.
Yep.
Shout out to Ashley.
Shout out to Ash.
So Ash and I went out to see this woman in Baltimore County, and we draft the estate plan, go back within a few days because her partner was in the hospital, and I can't remember what the condition was, but we knew it was serious. So we draft the will within a week, back out, we do the signing at the hospital back when you could still go into the hospital. And we left that signing at 7:30 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Okay.
At noon the next day, I got an email saying she had passed.
What?
And the partner said thank you because they've been together 20 plus years but never gotten legally married, even after it was an option.
Sure.
And she said that I'm paraphrasing, but somewhere along the lines of that was the closest to being married that she ever felt was by completing their estate plan because they did these sweetheart wills, you know.
Sure.
So that was a real good feel good one. Sad, but glad that we could do that literally hours before she passed.
Wow, man, that's so. Let me ask you this: it doesn't matter how soon or how late, the parties just have to be of their right minds and physically able to sign off on the necessary documents, right?
Yeah, and if you're dealing with a parent or a loved one that is looking like they're going back and forth between of right mind and not, act now, because you're going to want an attorney to be able to see them in the right mind, interact with them, and then have them sign that document. Because as soon as that's gone, nobody can do that. Nobody can.
Wow.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find an attorney that's willing to put their license on the line for that.
Right. That's great information. That's great information. Well, look, Sahmra, I know you're a busy woman. You've got so many lives to save and cases to win. So, so look, real quick, tell everybody how they can reach you.
Sure. We are available for anything, really. I do everything from the family law and estate planning to business law and business coaching. One thing we didn't talk about was the transformation coaching. So right now, in the time of COVID, everybody's going remotely. I've been doing a lot of training on helping people go this, remote management, mindfulness training, and also just wellness. So while we're stuck in this house, how are we staying well, both mentally and physically? You can chat on YouTube. SAS Fit Practice is my handle. Sam will put all of this stuff in the notes, I'm sure.
Right here. Yep.
Our office number is 301-795-2728 if you'd like to book a consultation. I will also give Sam the Calendly if you'd like to book online for any of our consultations. On Instagram, my handle is SAS Fit Practice or at Office Without Walls. Our Facebook page is also a great way to touch. I post a lot so people know what I'm doing, and there are a lot of feel-good stories, so you might just follow to enjoy the intricate.
Absolutely.
I think that's about it, Sam, right?
You do have a website, right?
Oh, yeah. We have 2 websites now, Sam. The website for the law firm is saslawoffices.com. Dang. We just redid the website. So www.saslawoffices.com. Or if you're looking for information on the remote and Office Without Walls, officewithoutwalls.org.
Nice.
They're both redone websites. The Artistry Group is who did it.
Okay.
It's a Black-owned business. I went with all Black-owned content writers and everything. So if you're needing information about that, let me know. And thank you so much for asking us, Sam. Really been a good time. I really enjoyed it.
I had a blast. I'm looking forward to doing this. Oh, and look, just in case they don't know, you and I are doing a webinar next month, right?
We are going to drop that date down there too. I don't have it.
Absolutely. We'll have that information on there. Don't worry. All All right. All right, Sahmra. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on, and take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you real soon.
All right, Sam. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.